I miss you. I can't stop thinking about us.
Why are you calling?
I want you back, please.
She sold her grandmother's gold earrings to cook that meal. He ate every single bite. Then he looked at her and said she was no longer good enough for him. She sat at that empty table for 3 hours without moving. Then she stood up, washed his plate, and made one decision that changed her whole life. 5 years before everything fell apart. The room was so small that if you stretched both arms wide, you could almost touch both walls. Abeni had tried it once. She never told Bulus. They had come to Joss City with big dreams and small money. The dreams were the size of mountains. The money finished in 11 days. But Bulus believed. Even when the landlord knocked on the door. Even when there was no food on the table. Even when rejection letters piled up on the floor like unwanted guests. Even when his own mother called from the village and said things through that thin door that Abeni was not supposed to hear, he still believed in himself. And on the nights that belief got too small, Abeni believed for both of them. She was not perfect. Some mornings she lay in bed and stared at the ceiling and counted problems she could not solve. She was tired. She was sometimes afraid. But every single morning she made one choice: to stay, to fight, to plant. In their 3rd month together, the money finished completely. Abeni went to her small box and took out the earrings. Her grandmother had put them in her hand the day she left the village. Pure gold, old gold. The kind that carries the warmth of every hand that ever touched it. Keep these for emergencies, her grandmother had said. She sold them on a Tuesday morning. She came home and told Bulus she had lost them. He believed her. He did not ask questions. A drowning man does not ask where the rope came from. He just holds on. She used the money to cook a proper meal. The kind of meal that says to a man without using words, "I see you. I believe in you. You are not finished yet." She watched him eat and felt something deep inside her chest. Not happiness exactly. Something stronger than happiness. Something that felt like purpose. The months passed. The rejection letters kept coming. Abeni kept cooking, kept washing his clothes by hand when there was no light, kept standing in front of people who called Bulus a nobody and saying clearly and quietly, "You are wrong about him." She said it so many times it became a wall around him. One evening Bulus looked up from the shirt she was mending and said, "When I make it, Abeni, I want a life that looks nothing like this." She smiled warmly and said, "We will build it together." He had not said together. She had not noticed that. The suit was the first big sacrifice. Bulus had an important interview, the kind that comes once and never comes back. He needed to look like the man he was trying to become, not the man he currently was. He did not have money for a suit. Abeni did not have money either. But she had her mother's good Ankara fabric, the special one she had been saving. She sold it without telling him. She came back with enough money for a suit that made Bulus stand differently when he wore it. She watched him practice standing straight in their small mirror and felt that feeling again. Purpose. He got the job. That night he held her for a long time and said her name quietly into her hair. Just her name. But the way he said it carried everything. That was year 2. Year 3 was different. The job opened doors. The doors opened more doors, and slowly Bulus began to change. New shoes, new way of talking, new people in his life, new restaurants he mentioned that she had never been to. She told herself this was good. This was what they had been working toward. Then one evening, he brought a colleague home, a well-dressed man from his office. The kind of man who walks into a room and quietly judges everything in it without showing it on his face. Abeni made tea, smiled, served them both, and in that moment she saw their room through this man's eyes. The curtain that was slightly too short, the chair with the repaired leg, the small table they used for everything. She had never been ashamed of their room, but she saw Bulus look at her in that moment. Just for 1 second, he looked at her like she was something he needed to explain. She went to the kitchen and stood there longer than necessary. When she came back, she was smiling. She had become very good at that. 2 weeks later, Bulus mentioned a name. There is a woman at a client's office, very sharp, Sade. You would like her, actually. Abeni nodded, said nothing. That night she took out her small mirror and looked at her own face for a long time. She was not sure what she was searching for. She was not sure what she found. Then came the news. Bulus walked through the door one evening with a face she had never seen on him before. Like a man who had been knocking on a door for 3 years and it had finally opened, the first big contract had come through. Abeni ran to him, hugged him tightly, laughed into his neck. She cooked his favourite food that evening, set the table as beautifully as that small room would allow, found the candle she had been saving for a special occasion. She did not know this was the last meal. She had been planning the meal for 3 days, not because something had warned her, not because she had heard anything. She just wanted to celebrate him the way she had always celebrated him, with everything she had. She went to the market early that morning. His favourite ingredients: good palm oil, the right stockfish. She spent the last of her careful savings without hesitating. On the way home, she touched the small earrings in her ears. Not her grandmother's real ones. Those were gone. These were the replacements she had bought when she had a little money. They were not gold, but she wore them because they made her feel close to the ones she had sold. She cooked for 4 hours. She spread the special tablecloth she kept for important occasions. She lit the candle. She wore the dress Bulus had once said made her look like herself. She sat down and waited for him to come home. Bulus walked in at 9 o'clock that night. He looked at the table. He sat down. She served him with her own hands. She watched him eat the way she had watched him eat 100 times, with love, with pride, with the quiet joy of a woman feeding someone she built her world around. She talked while he ate, small happy things, the neighbour's baby, something funny she heard. He nodded. He smiled a little. He finished everything on his plate. Then he put down his fork. He did not look at her. He looked at the candle flame. Abeni, I need to say something, and I think it is better to say it now than to keep it inside. She put down the cup she was holding. I have met someone. Her name is Sade. She understands the direction my life is going now. She fits the kind of man I am becoming. I think she is right for the life I am building. The room was completely quiet. Somewhere through the wall, the neighbour's television was playing. You are a good woman, Abeni. You have been very good to me, and I want you to know I see that. But I need someone who matches where I am going now. I think it is better for both of us to end this here." She did not cry. She did not shout. She sat very still, and the only thought that came to her mind was this: the earrings. She had sold her grandmother's gold earrings to buy the ingredients for this meal. "Okay," she said. Her voice was calm and steady. Bulus looked at her then. Maybe he expected tears. Maybe he expected her to beg. Maybe he expected her to fall apart. She looked back at him. With none of those things, he went quietly to pack his things. Within 1 hour, he was gone. Abeni sat at the table alone. The food was still warm. The candle was still burning. She sat for 3 full hours without moving, without crying, without calling anyone. She just sat there and let the full weight of what had happened press down on her completely. She let it settle. All of it. Every bit of it. So it could never surprise her again. Then she stood up. She washed his plate slowly and carefully. She picked up her phone. She called a number. When the voice answered, she said simply, "Auntie Reese, I am ready now. Please tell me what to do next." Auntie Reese had been calling for 2 years. "Come and learn this fabric business," she always said. "You have the eye for it. You have the hands for it. I have been watching you build that man from nothing. Come and build something that belongs to you. Something that cannot pack a bag and walk out." Abeni had always answered the same way. "Not yet, Auntie. Let Bulus get stable first." Soon had arrived. It arrived at a table with an empty plate and a finished candle and a man who was already gone. She moved out of the room the following week. Her new place was smaller in some ways. 1 room, quiet compound, different part of Jaws, no space for 2 people. The first night she lay down on the bed, she did something she had not done in 5 years. She stretched both arms as wide as they could go. Both arms. She touched nothing. She started working with Auntie Reese on a Monday morning. Fabric. Abeni had always had the eye without knowing it. The ability to walk through a market and see not just what was there, but what was missing, what women were looking for but could not find. Auntie Reese watched her for 3 days and then said, "You have been wasting yourself on that man." She said it without cruelty, just as a fact. Month 1, Abeni learned everything. Month 2, she made mistakes and learned from those too. Month 3, she made her first sale that was completely hers. She held the money and looked at it for a long time. It was not a large amount, but it felt different from any money she had ever held before. It was not survival money. It was not Bulus money. It was proof that her hands could do this alone. Proof that 5 years of building someone else had not emptied her. It had been teaching her the whole time. She bought herself earrings on an ordinary Thursday afternoon. Not expensive, not gold, but she bought them with money she had made herself from work she had done herself. She stood at her small mirror and put them in. "I replaced them," she thought quietly, and that felt like a conversation with her grandmother. News about Bulus arrived the way weather arrives, without being invited, through people who knew people. The new apartment in Lagos, the new car. Sade appearing in photos looking beautiful and slightly unbothered. Abeni noticed that Bulus in those photos looked like a man working hard to look happy. She recognized that look. She had watched him practice it in their small mirror in Joss. She hoped he found what he was looking for. She was surprised to find she actually meant it. One afternoon she saw them in a shopping complex. She was there for fabric. They were there for something else. Bulus and Sade. Sade was laughing at her phone, not even looking at Bulus. Bulus was watching Sade with the face of a man trying very hard to look like he had everything he ever wanted. Abeni watched them for 5 seconds. Then she turned around and walked the other way. She had a meeting with a supplier. She could not be late. 2 years after the empty table, Abeni's business had a sign outside the door. Not big, but real. Abeni Fabrics and Design. She had 2 staff. A young woman who cut fabric with beautiful precision. A young man who handled deliveries without complaining. Her clients were mostly women who wanted to look like themselves instead of looking like everybody else. She had a special gift for that. She could look at a woman and see exactly what she should be wearing before the woman knew it herself. Word had spread the way good things spread, quietly but far. When Auntie Reese told her about the industry gathering in Lagos, she almost said no. "You need to be in rooms like this," Auntie Reese said firmly. "You have grown past Joss for now. Go and let people see you." Abeni made her own dress for the occasion. Deep green, the kind of green that plays with the light in a room and wins every time. She made it herself, from fabric she had chosen herself. She wore earrings she bought in Abuja. New earrings. Not grandmother's earrings, not replacements, something entirely new. Something that belonged to the woman she was right now. She walked into that Lagos room and felt something she had not expected to feel. She felt like she belonged there, not because of the dress, not because of the earrings, because she had built something real with her own hands. And when you build something real, it gives you a way of standing that no one can take from you and no one can fake. She was talking to a woman about Kano fabrics when she felt it. The feeling of being watched. She finished her sentence properly. Then she turned around. Bulus was standing about 20 steps away. He was holding a glass of wine he had completely forgotten to drink. Sade was standing beside him, looking at her phone. Abeni looked at the full picture, the way she looked at everything now, calmly, completely, without flinching. Bulus looked like a man who had just seen something that changed the story he had been telling himself. Abeni walked over to them. Warm, easy, unbothered. Bulus. "Good evening." He found his voice slowly, like someone searching for something in a dark room. "Abeni, you look." He stopped, started again. "How are you?" "I am very well," she said simply. She turned to Sade with a genuine smile. "You must be Sade. It is nice to meet you." Sade looked at her carefully. The way women look at each other when they already know something important without being told. "I have a meeting on the other side of the room," Abeni said pleasantly. "Enjoy your evening." She walked away. She did not look back. Bulus stood holding his forgotten wine and watched her move through that room. He watched how people turned toward her when she spoke. He watched how she laughed at something across the room. He watched the earrings catch the light. Something in his chest moved. Beside him, Sade said something. He could not hear what it was. He was watching Abeni shake someone's hand and smile the smile of a woman who had absolutely nothing to prove to anyone in that room. He had not seen that smile in a long time. No, that was not true. He had seen it many times. He had just stopped being the reason for it. Regret does not come knocking loudly. It does not announce itself. It comes quietly. When you are standing in the kitchen doing nothing important, when you are sitting in traffic staring at nothing, when you are lying awake at 2 a.m. next to someone who is sleeping peacefully and you feel completely and totally alone, Bulus had been feeling it for weeks, since the gathering in Lagos. He kept comparing things without meaning to, the way your mind does when it is trying to understand something it got wrong. Abeni moving through that room with purpose. Sade moving through their apartment, looking for the next thing to want. Abeni building something from nothing. Sade spending something that was already there. He knew this was not completely fair to Sade. She had not lied to him. He had gone to her. He had offered her a relationship, and she had accepted it. She did not know what had gone into the foundation of everything she was now standing on, but Bulus knew. He had always known. He had just refused to look at it directly. The business was not doing what he had told people it was doing. Money moves fast when a man is spending it to look like who he wants people to think he is. The big contract had been real, but it had also ended, and the life he had built to impress people was becoming expensive to maintain. Sade was still there, but she had begun to look at things in their apartment the way a person looks at things when they are calculating something. He asked about Abeni, casually, like the question cost him nothing. The answers surprised him. The business, the sign, the 2 staff, the clients coming from other cities, the woman she had quietly become while he was busy looking the other way. He thought about the earrings. He could not sleep properly for 4 days. On the 5th day, he called her. She picked up on the 3rd ring. Abeni. A short silence. Then Bulus. No shock in her voice. Nothing angry either. Just the calm of someone receiving a call they always knew was a possibility. I have been thinking about the earrings, he said. She was quiet. Which earrings? She asked, even though she already knew. Your grandmother's, he said. You told me you lost them, but I know the truth now. I think I always knew somewhere inside me, and I kept choosing not to look at it. You sold them. You sold your grandmother's gold earrings to buy food for me. And then I sat down and ate that food and told you that you were not good enough for me anymore. He stopped speaking. The line was quiet between them. I am not calling to ask for anything, he continued. I am not calling because I want something from you. I am calling because you deserved someone who noticed what you were giving. And I was too busy becoming someone else to see it. That was wrong. You were never unsuitable, Abeni. That word should never have left my mouth. The truth is, I was ashamed of the man you had watched struggle. And instead of being grateful to the person who stayed through all of it, I pointed my shame at you. Abeni sat quietly in her small office. Outside the window, Joss was doing what it does in the evening, cooling down slowly. The sky turning colours that are never exactly the same twice. She looked at the sign on the wall through her window, her name on that sign. Bulus, she said. Her voice was gentle, not cold, not warm exactly, just honest. I do not carry that table anymore. I washed that plate. and I put it down a long time ago. What I carry now is everything I have built since the night I stood up from that table. And it is more than I ever imagined I could carry." She paused. "I truly hope you find the life you were looking for. I mean that honestly. I hope it feels like home when you finally get there." "Does yours?" he asked quietly. She looked around her office. The fabric samples pinned to the wall, the orders written in her own handwriting, the 2 chairs where her staff sat, the earrings she had taken off earlier sitting on the desk beside her phone. "Yes," she said. "Just that one word, good," said Bulus, and the way he said it told her he meant it too. She ended the call. She sat for a moment with the phone in her hand. Then she picked up her earrings and put them back in. She stood up, turned off the light, and walked out into the cool Joss evening like a woman who had somewhere important to be, which she did. She always did now. This was not just Abeni's story. This is the story of every woman who loved a man into becoming someone better, and then watched him walk away with that better version of himself. Every woman who sold quiet things so his plate looked full. Every woman who defended his name to people who could already see clearly what she refused to see. Every woman who sat at an empty table and felt the full weight of giving everything to someone who was already planning to leave. Every woman who cried quietly at night so he could sleep peacefully. Every woman who kept choosing to stay and build when leaving would have been so much easier. Abeni did not lose Bulus. She lost the version of herself that needed his approval to feel worthy. And that loss turned out to be the greatest gift she ever received. Because the moment she stopped building for him, she discovered something that changed everything. She had always been the builder. She had just been building in the wrong direction. She did not lose him. She lost the version of herself that needed him to believe in her worth. And that loss was the beginning of everything.